Mafia. He killed to protect silence. A man gets on his knees in front of a judge and bursts out crying. The judge asks him why he is crying. "I want to tell the truth about my boss. I know something terrible he did," says the man. The judge nods for him to continue. "He threatened me. He threatened my family. If I didn't do what he said, he would kill me." The man begins to sob uncontrollably. The judge calls for a recess while the jury leaves the room. The judge tells the court clerk to bring him water. But before the man can calm down, a dark-suited man stands up from the jury. He walks toward the sobbing witness and leans over him, whispering something into his ear. The man stops crying and instead looks angry. He stands up, glares at the man in the dark suit, and says, "It was self-defense. I swear it was." And then he walks out without a word to anyone else. But what really happened? Was the Mafia boss really killed in self-defense? Or was the witness lying? Well, let's rewind a few days earlier. Luca was a made man in the Italian Mafia. He ran a crew of thugs that made millions for the family. Luca ruled his crew with an iron fist. He demanded total loyalty and obedience. Anyone who went against him or showed weakness was cast out and killed. His men feared him because of his brutality, but also because of his uncanny ability to predict their next move. He always seemed to be one step ahead. There was only one way to survive under Luca: obey him without question. One day Luca received a tip that one of his soldiers was stealing money. He called the soldier into his office. "Get out of your seat," Luca said quietly. The soldier got out of his seat slowly. Luca stood up and walked toward him. "Do you know why you're here?" The soldier shook his head. Luca punched him so hard that the soldier fell to his knees. Then he kicked him in the side. "Answer my question," he growled. "What did you take?" The soldier looked up at him and started crying. "I took 20 grand, please. Forgive me." Luca leaned over him. "There's no forgiveness for thieves. Now you have to go." The soldier understood that he was being let go, but he wasn't going anywhere alive. Luca dragged him out of the office, threw him into an empty warehouse. Then he locked the door and left him there to die. In the morning, someone found the dead soldier hanging by a chain around his neck. His eyes were wide open, staring blankly ahead. It was obvious that he had been tortured before he died. Luca gathered his men. "Did any of you see anything last night?" They all shook their head. "Good," Luca said. "If any of you rats are hiding anything, you will suffer the same fate as our brother." He paused. "The killer is among us. We must find him and kill him so he can't talk." They nodded obediently. They knew better than to disobey. Meanwhile, the police were investigating the death of the soldier. They believed that Luca was behind it. They arrested him and brought him to the station house. Luca knew that the evidence was against him. He figured that the cops had a good case against him. He wasn't worried. He sat back and watched as they tried to pin the murder on him. "Luca, we know you killed Sal," the lead detective said. "Why don't you just come clean and save yourself some trouble?" Luca laughed. "You think I'm scared of you?" The detective slammed his fist on the table. "I want to ask you again. Why don't you come clean?" Luca stood up. "I've already told you everything you need to know. I didn't kill that guy." He turned to leave. "Oh, and one more thing," he said over his shoulder. "Watch your backs. You never know who the mole is." The detective was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He didn't have enough evidence to charge Luca, so he had to let him go. When Luca got back to his crew, he found that someone had betrayed him. One of his own men had informed the police, and now his whereabouts were known. Luca gathered his men in the warehouse, where he killed the traitor. He wanted to send a message to the other men. He didn't know who the mole was, but he would find out. That night, armed police surrounded the warehouse. As soon as they entered, they found blood everywhere. On the floor was a dead man with a bullet hole in his head. The police searched the area, but they couldn't find Luca. He had vanished. The police didn't know it, but Luca had escaped through a secret passageway that led to an underground tunnel. This tunnel would eventually lead him to a boat waiting to take him off the island. Weeks later, Luca was living in a small town in Sicily. He had changed his name and appearance. He even dyed his hair. Thought he had gotten away with it. Thought the police would never find him, but he was wrong. One day, 2 men knocked on his door. They introduced themselves as police officers. "We're looking for a wanted man," one of them said. "You've seen him?" Luca felt a chill go down his spine. He knew that they were talking about him. He tried to play it cool, but the officers weren't buying it. Are you sure you haven't seen him? Luca shook his head. The officers searched the house, but they couldn't find Luca. He had hidden himself in the cellar. They'd let him go without knowing it. Luca fled to another town. This time he hid in plain sight. He opened a restaurant. It was a big success. Everyone loved his food. Luca became a local celebrity. He thought he had finally gotten away with it. But he was wrong. One day, two men walked into his restaurant. They were detectives from the police force. Luca, one of them, said, "We know who you are." Luca felt a chill go down his spine. He knew that they were onto him. "What do you want?" he asked nervously. The detectives closed in on him. "We're here to arrest you," they said. But Luca wasn't going to go down without a fight. He pulled out a gun and fired. One of the detectives was hit, but he managed to return fire. Luca was shot multiple times. He collapsed to the floor. The surviving detective handcuffed him. "It's over, Luca," he said. "You'll never get away with it again." At the trial, the detective testified against Luca. He told the jury how Luca had killed one of his men and framed it as a robbery gone wrong. He also told them about Luca's history of violence and how he was a threat to society. The jury found Luca guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison. As Luca was being let out of the courtroom, he glared at the detective. "You may have won this round, but I'll be out soon enough. When I am, I'm going to make you pay." The detective just smiled. "Bring it on, Luca. I'm not afraid of you." In prison, Luca became one of the most feared inmates. Everyone was afraid of him. Even the guards avoided him. Luca spent years plotting his revenge. He waited for his chance to get back at the detective. Finally, his opportunity came when the detective was transferred to the same prison where Luca was being held. The detective didn't know that Luca was waiting for him. One day, Luca confronted the detective in the prison yard. "It's time to pay," he said, pulling out a shiv. The detective was taken aback. He didn't know that Luca had a weapon. Before he could react, Luca lunged at him. He stabbed the detective in the chest. The detective collapsed to the ground. Luca stood over him, panting. "This is for framing me," he said. He pulled out the shiv and plunged it into the detective's heart. The detective stared at him with hatred in his eyes. "You'll burn in hell," he whispered before dying. But he was right. Luca did burn in hell. He was later found guilty of murder and sentenced to the death penalty. For more intense stories, stay tuned.